Welcome to the Writer Reads Short Stories. This is the third and final part of Shadow Life. The kill belongs to us all, the lady repeated when Ross looked about to protest. The whelp's ravages have touched us close to the bone, and we will all share his demise. We'd better share it quickly, then, another voice interrupted. Whoops. We'd better share it quickly, then, another voice interrupted, for he has made his selection and even now has taken up the hunt. This time I was sure I heard wind blowing through pine trees. I looked up at what I guessed to be the hunt mistress. She was darkly tanned, with thick russet hair and eyes the colour of palest amber. I could nearly see the blunt claws of her beast form overshadowing her fingernails. There was a moment of tension between the lady and the mistress. It died as we looked to them. You, the lady directed, pointing to me. You will draw him. He has already selected his prey, the hunt mistress argued. He will not be swayed by her. She drew blood beneath last month's moon, the lady retorted. He will not overlook her when she comes across him and his prey in the alley. The alley? It is his killing floor. He had better not overlook her, He had better not overlook her, Ross spoke darkly. His intended prey happens to be a dear friend of mine. You are free to intervene any time you feel necessary, the lady told him. The hunt mistress nodded her agreement. My thanks, Ross said dryly, and I knew he would have intervened whether he had their My thanks, Ross said dryly, and I knew he would have intervened whether he had their permission or no. I listened to their instructions, seeking the face of the killer again in the crowd. I glimpsed him once or twice more, dancing with his prey before the band on the mid-level, unaware of the interest he drew from the woman Ross had called a hunter. We ate a token meal, during which the lady brought a glass full of red. You have not learned to control the hunger yet, she said, as much for my own benefit as for those around the table. I drank my meal, gulping down the scarlet liquid in the goblet and watching while the whelp that had killed Nicola seduced another victim. I almost dropped the goblet when the pair headed for the door leading from the club. The lady's hand on my shoulder stilled me, and I looked askance of her. Not yet, she whispered. It would be too soon. He's expecting trouble. We waited. I fidgeted in my seat. When she nodded for me to go after them, I felt like an arrow released from a bow. Mustering as much self-control as I possessed, I walked through the packed nightclub to the exit I'd seen the pair take. Samantha walked beside me, her hand under my elbow to slow me should she need to. She did not, and I sensed the same leashed tension in her as I felt coursing through myself. Ross, walking behind us, radiated enough curved energy that I felt it from 10 paces ahead of him. Outside in the street, I sensed when Ross left us. I did not look back, but strode forward, listening, muscles tense, ready to run. There was mist in the streets. The night was cold, and I sent little puffs of white before me as I walked. Ahead of me, someone screamed. I broke into a run, praying Ross would not be too impatient. The woman screamed again, and someone yelled a challenge. Another woman. I raced forward, aware Samantha had caught up to me. Our plans had changed. I reached out a hand and she grabbed it, so we ran forward together. I reached out a hand and she grabbed it, so we ran forward together. The woman's voice was giving orders, and I heard them being answered with the same velvet tones of mockery that had goaded me the night of Nicola's death. This time Samantha could not hold me back. This time I tore my hand free of her grip and lunged into the alley mouth. The hunter faced the whelp, who had a merciless grip on the throat of the woman he had taken from the club. I was relieved when I smelt no blood. Ross watched silently from the shadows, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. The hunter had levelled an ancient weapon at him. Its hammer was back, and her finger trembled on the trigger. Part of my mind marvelled that a blunderbuss could still be in fine enough working order to take down creatures of the night. The whelp saw me coming over the hunter's shoulder. Still seeking Nicola, it sneered. Still proud of having kept her from the secrets of the night? I saw his nails dig more deeply into the girl's throat. The hunter stiffened, more from sensing my approach than believing the whelp's lying tongue. I admired her courage. Another step, she growled, and your friend in the shadows wears a silver bullet. I'm not interested in you, I retorted. My prey is the murderer who stands in front of you. And what of your friend? The same, I replied, moving steadily toward her back. He has no interest in you save to keep from your sight. The hunter laughed at that and shifted her aim from Ross to the half-breed. Together? She asked. The half-breed heard her, sensed our unity of purpose, bared his fangs and bent his head toward his prisoner's breast. He got no further. The hunter's weapon roared death. Too old for a silencer, it echoes. Whoops. The hunter's weapon roared death. Too old for a silencer, its echoes rang through the alley and into the street beyond. It was almost equaled by Ross's bellow of hunting rage. My own cry seemed pitifully weak in comparison, but my blow struck first with all my weight behind it. The 6-inch blade of the stiletto only stopped when the dagger's hilt met the whelp's spine. He stared at me in startlement, dropping his prey as he reached for me. She stumbled to one side, holding a hand to her throat. Ross looked once at the battle, then swept her away. I looked into the half-breed's eyes and twisted the leather-bound handle. He tried to scream, but no sound came. He closed one hand around my wrist, its claws cutting almost to the bone. Again I twisted the dagger's blade. The hunter stepped in close beside me, and the blunderbuss roared again. The half-breed whimpered, and I turned the blade once more. Red mist hung across my vision, and all I was aware of was the stiletto's hilt and the whelp's struggles. In the end, I was not even aware of those. It was Samantha's hand on my arm that stopped me as I bared my fangs and lunged for the half-breed's throat. Someone else dragged him out of my grasp, while Samantha held me back until the reality of the alley, the mist, and the surrounding mounds of garbage came back to me. By that time, Samantha and I were alone. No, not quite alone. I shook my head, and the shapes of dinitrate and the hunt mistress became clear in the mist. They advanced toward us with caution, relaxing when they saw I was free of the killing rage. We will take him to some nice sunny garden where his ashes will fertilize the flowers, Dinitrate told me. You'd better hurry then, Samantha replied. I can hear sirens. I can see the lights. The lady's voice drifted down to us from the top of a nearby roof. I left the alley, Samantha leading. Nicola was avenged, and Ross had taken his friend somewhere safe to explain to her the secrets of the night. Dinitrate and the hunt mistress did as they had promised, and my stiletto, its handle still wrapped in blood-soaked leather thonging, was returned to me 3 days later. 2 curved white fangs and 5 black claws were returned with it. Trophies, Samantha explained, and I grinned at her, wrapping an arm around her waist and drawing her to me.